Hey, everybody.
From Salt Lake City, Utah.
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
The podcast.
I'm Frank.
And I'm Adam, sitting in for Dan yet again.
Yeah, really recent this time, too.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Coming up on today's episode, we're just doing the news today.
Just the news, because we are long-winded, folks. And we're here in my new, I wanted to save this for the show. We are officially popping the cherry on this room being the podcast room.
Wow.
Right now. This is the first, because
so not even your own podcast.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, this is the new podcast room.
What?
And it's very airy and breezy and bright and lots of windows and plants. And this is the first show.
It's very, Well, that's, what an honor.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of, it was kind of neat.
It's a treat.
Yeah, definitely.
That's amazing.
Oh, well, thanks. I mean, I know that I'm sure that with bated breath, the crowd awaits
right
for this landmark episode.
See how it changes everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's all different now.
Yeah. Everything's different.
Yeah. So we are actually at Adam's house.
Yes.
And instead of at Dan's house.
Mm-hmm.
And so we could have done it at Dan's.
Yeah. And you suggested that, and you were like, "I have a key," and I'm like, "That's really weird." I don't know. I mean, it's fine. You're friends with him, but
mind.
But
I mean, he offered. He said, "Here's the key. Just do it here."
It's totally
that way it all
weird,
sounds the same.
I was like, do we? I thought about it for a second, like, oh, maybe that's a good idea, and then I was like, if I wanted a glass of water, I'd have to go. It's not even yours.
I would go
house.
get it for you if you were that
weird though.
Use their bathroom when they're not there.
Yeah,
that is a little weird, isn't it?
And forget to flush, and then a week later.
They're getting home in a couple days.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. It was yellow. I let it mellow. Why are you guys freaking out?
God, gross. It is a desert that we live in.
This is true. Yeah, you really want to conserve that water.
Yeah, it's Dan and his wife are at their annual Burning Man.
Is it Burning Man?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Trip. So
that's
they
amazing.
do it every year.
Do they do it every year?
Yeah.
How long have they been doing it?
Well, let's see. I went 4 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And so I think this is their third year because their first year was the year after mine.
Oh, okay.
And I haven't been back because it's fun. It's cool.
But it's also
it's
a commitment.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
You have to take everything with you for those however many days, 5-6 days that you're there.
I could never do it. There's the part of me that wants to be wild and primitive.
Yeah.
And then there's the part of me that just cannot. I would never be able to get native like that. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I just, even with as many mind altering, there's just no way. I'm just I'm kind of uptight when it comes to stuff like that.
The thing about Burning Man is you can go and have the experience that you want.
Right.
And because there are 55,000 people, I think, this year. And I mean, you think about that, and that represents a large art scene.
Sure.
Of a very, very large city.
So the way that
there's so many facets to it.
Right.
It's more art than exists in any one city.
You know the way that me and my wife are. We're shit talkers. And so it's we would see some amazing sculpture that's, 10 stories high made out of condoms or something. And we'd both be like, wow. And then immediately we'd both be like, and why go to all that work to then smirk at everything?
But it's be the best smirking of your life. I guarantee you.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Anyway.
So
I've got a little story I'd like to start off with.
Let's do it.
Are you familiar with the American Atheists, Adam?
Yes, yeah.
Shut up. They're not that bad.
Yeah. I think that they to me anyway, it's sort of the reason why your guys' podcast is so well received is because it's this is more of sort of the minority in terms of the way in which you guys sort of handle atheist issues, and they seem to
the minority of the people who are kind of out there trying to say something.
That are out there to say something. It's just what was the billboard with the slave on it?
That was
that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that pisses a lot of people off that they do. I do always like to defend a lot of their courtroom type stuff.
Sure.
A lot of the lawsuits that they bring forth. They're actually important issues.
It's the PR aspect.
It's the PR stuff that we
have
always had a beef with. Well, anyways.
Sorry.
Wow, that was a sound.
I tried to push in.
Okay, it's fine.
Sorry.
David Silverman is the name of the guy who runs
Right,
the organization, right? Well, recently he put in for a new license, a vanity plate in the state of New Jersey.
I like that.
Yeah. And it says, it's ATHE1ST. Atheist.
Ooh,
right?
okay, yeah.
And you look at it, and the one is clear. It's a license plate, right?
Right. Yeah,
it looks like an eye.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission rejected his request. And of course, this is like the most litigious atheist in existence.
Yeah. So,
they don't know quite who they've ticked off with.
Well, my whole thing is like, did they? He did it not because he wanted the license plate atheist. He did it so that they would not let him do it.
Here's the deal: he has in his office a vanity plate that somebody had gotten from the state of New Jersey that said atheist. No one, no anything. It just said atheist.
Okay.
They I guess let expire and they sent it in to him or whatever. And so he had it as like this little trophy on his wall. And then he was like, well, if I just substituted a 1 in there, then I could have atheist for me. And that would be really cool.
And they didn't let him.
And they wouldn't let him. And so he gets all up in their legal faces. And
so why did they? I mean, if there was atheist already, why would they care?
Well, okay, so any state will keep a list of words or variations of words that are automatic red flags. Right.
Yeah.
But then it's also up to the person who's processing the request to review. And whoever this was bothered by it. Right.
Oh.
And said that it was offensive. That is an offensive word.
Some little old lady at the DLD was like, well, I never.
Yeah. Right. And so he goes through the whole process. Long story short, they let him finally do it because they realize, oh my God, we pissed off the wrong atheist. And
this will never end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they prior to this, his vanity plate was BLASFMR. Blasphemer. Okay. And so he had blasphemer,
and
that
was fine.
That wasn't a red flag for whoever processed that one.
I just don't understand. I mean, if you were working at the driver's what was the DMV or the DLD?
They call it the
motor vehicle
MVC.
Oh, okay.
The Motor Vehicle Commission.
If you're the person where you shoot for the stars, you land on the roof, and the roof that you landed on is reviewing vanity plates for your life. I mean, I guess, at first I was thinking, like, why wouldn't you just be like, ugh, like everything in your life is just ugh anyway. But then I was like, actually, you might be really petty. You might be like, what's the great line from Fargo where Steve Buscemi is like, oh, you just, you're running your own little, your own little world right here, huh? Your little king of your domain right here, It's like, yeah, you'd totally be like, oh, I'm not. There's no way this is going through.
Right.
But I guess blasphemer,
yeah, they let blasphemer through, so. But atheist, let me tell you, this is why we're still the least trusted group in America.
Because of vanity plates?
No, because of this show goes to show that we're still the least.
I don't know. What I wonder if Muslim is on that list.
No, apparently I think we beat out the Muslims.
Really?
In general, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How can that possibly be?
We had this one a year and a half ago, if I remember right, this story.
Really?
Yeah, I remember something about it.
Beat out Muslims as
we beat out everybody. We're the least trusted group in America.
How can that
You say you're an atheist. So a little old woman, or not a little old woman, at the DMV saying, no, this is offensive. Yeah, I understand that it would happen. Obviously, I don't agree with it, but I see it.
What about jihad? Do you think they'd let that one through?
Or jihadi? Jihad 1.
Totally. Jihad with an I for the.
Well, they might just go, nah,
Yeah,
Let him deal with it.
You know,
He won't have it for long.
I'm pretty sure that this is going to solve itself. All right, so I feel like I'd like to start off my news segments with a verse from the Bible.
Oh,
if I may.
I love the Bible.
Isaiah 17:1.
Okay.
Behold, Damascus will cease to be a city and become a heap of ruins.
Oh, no. Oh,
Now,
no.
Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, ends with a vision of Armageddon, which brings Jesus Christ back. Okay?
Oh, no.
Now, Jeremiah 49 and Zechariah 9 also make similar violent references regarding the fate of Damascus.
Okay.
Frank, where is Damascus?
It's in Syria.
Many, many evangelical sects have been waiting for the Arab Spring and all of the different wars and issues in the Middle East to reach Damascus. Because once they do, it's the end times and Jesus comes back. Okay?
So basically, wow, okay.
And this is
A heap of ruins.
a heap of ruins. Now, if I may, let's just look at one of a number of websites that have been popping up recently.
Yeah.
See, right off the bat, when this is what your website looks like, when you have like,
Okay, first of all, what we're looking at is a website that says Damascus destruction across the top. And next to it, it has a nuclear mushroom cloud.
the long
Fiery
prophesied end days are here. If you have a black
And then it
background,
just says gone.
if you have a black background with gigantic white and red font,
Yeah.
like that, you initially, right when you see that, you're like, oh, it's one of these websites.
Apparently you never went to frankfest.com.
I've been to Frankfest. I know it looks. Yeah,
It's no longer belongs to me, people. You don't need to go look it up. But at one point I had frankfest.com.
yeah.
And
so
it was awesome.
nuclear war. So this whole website, and I love this because here we have pictures of Assad and Ahmadinejad, and then we have
Oh, that's
a Baphomet. And
Which
then,
is describe it. Not everybody will know.
oh, okay. Baphomet is the Satan. It's like it's where you see the goat head that is inside of the
A pentagram.
A pentagram.
Yeah.
And then right below it is the most amazing Photoshop picture of Obama looking like Satan, essentially.
Yeah.
And there's and then a lot of this biblical scribe. And then pictures along with it going, see. And so this one is like, on the face of the whole earth, and he touched not the ground. And there's a picture of an aircraft carrier.
Yeah, that's true. It's not going to touch the ground.
Not touching the ground in the water.
Yeah.
Ooh. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes, and the great horn is between the eyes as the first king. And there's a picture of Obama looking like he's smelling a fart. Just fantastic.
Is the great horn between his eyes that little furrow?
Yeah, it's
in his brow?
exactly. See. So anyway, this all basically is just going to show that this is one of these weird things that happens where Christians, you have these Christians who claim to be peace-loving people and we hate war and all this, but the war in the Middle East, and this has been going on for years.
Right.
That people, that these groups are looking at the war in the Middle East and they're going, yeah, go for it, because they believe that it's the beginning of end times. And it's such a weird, I don't understand how that doesn't fly in the face of. But again, this is like what we talked about before about being the stewards of the land versus being like, hey, if we can get World War III to start, that's when Jesus comes back.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess you want Jesus to come back. You believe in Jesus. You're like, please let us. Finally, we are the chosen generation. Right?
This is the most important thing.
This is what the whole world has been building up to. Is this guy coming back to rule and we'll be his subjects and whatnot? But you're talking about you are rooting on the biggest dick of a god.
Yeah, I know.
That you could imagine ever having. Like,
Yeah.
all the carnage and all the loss of life and all the destruction of his own creation.
Yeah.
Like, it just blows my mind.
I mean, doesn't
that could be what you would want?
But don't you think that
you'd want to believe in that?
In that way, that's part of believing in. Obviously, not all religions are like this, but definitely Western religions of Christianity are like this. That you believe you in order to believe in that religion, you must believe that somewhere out there is a being that's smarter and more noble and has the plan, and so you don't need to. Right. And whatever that thing decides, you will be humble and you will go along with it.
Right.
And so saying like, oh, well, yeah, there's going to be, so much life lost, but it's all part of this bigger plan that we get Jesus back here.
Right.
And like, to me, I'm just like, that's so sociopathic. Right. Like to think that, to think that like, oh, thank God we're finally headed into Damascus. Like this is all going to end. It's like, that is
this misery that is our lives on earth.
It's absolutely insane to me. Yeah. And I still don't really figure out, like, I mean, I guess what part of the bigger plan is that Obama is the Antichrist, and so he's going to be the one that starts the war, or what is
Something
that?
Like
is that the philosophy?
Yeah.
It's so strange to me that you would ever even. I don't understand how you can get on board with that way of thinking. But I mean, I guess it's the same thing as like, somebody's kid dies of a terrible illness and they're like, well, he has a plan. You're just like, really? That's right. What you're going to? He has a plan.
Yeah.
That's great.
that's what they believe. I mean, but the thing that always amazes me is that this God is like some kind of also like really OCD, like crazy planner. Like he's planted all these signs and he's known how he's going to do it from the beginning.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
He's got this big old plan all laid out. And he's like, hey, I'm going to have these chosen people.
Yeah.
And then, I'm going to have sex with this woman and she's going to have a kid. And that kid, well, I'm going to let him get killed.
Yeah.
And somehow that his being killed is going to get everybody else forgiven for their sins against me.
Right.
That's what I really need.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I just want to see my half God child be killed.
Yeah.
And then I can forgive everybody.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'm going to plant all these little things. I'm going to let the whole thing go to hell. And I'm going to get this guy over here to run for president of the United States.
Yeah, well, my favorite part about it is that, like,
how?
My favorite,
really, he planned this all out.
And my favorite part of it, you want to talk about like this right here. This is the long con. Okay, this is a real, because you go. So then, and it's God talking to all of his God buddies at the bar, and he's like, so then they kill my son, and it forgives everybody's sins. Now, 2,000 years later, and everybody's like, oh,
he's
God,
just the
shut
jerk.
the fuck up. Really?
Such a bad drunk.
Oh, he's so bad. That is the stupidest plan. Why 2,000 years? Why are you going to wait 2,000 years?
Because it has to be the beginning of the seventh dispensation. It has to be. Don't you see? This is the way that this is how I'm going to do it, guys. This is totally.
And then, like, the other guy at the other end of the table is like, I'm just going to make all my people on my planet good. I'm not even going to bother with the devil. I'm
not going to worry about creating evil.
Now, why?
This whole yin yang thing.
Why do it?
Yeah.
My whole planet's going to be made of pot. It's going to be awesome. Everybody's just going to hang out.
God, why couldn't I got that God?
Yeah, nobody ever dies or gets sick. It's awesome. We just all hang out.
Well, it's nice.
Yeah.
Actually, though, what you were just describing was Lucifer's plan.
Oh, yeah.
That was Satan's plan.
Yeah. Nobody dies.
Yeah.
And,
that's a Mormon thing, right? Do we need to explain that?
Yeah, that Jesus and Satan and
in
Lucifer.
The pre-existence.
Yeah, okay.
In the pre-existence.
Yes.
There were two plans that were brought forth.
Well, there's the cartoon of it, right? Isn't there the cartoon on YouTube with the really creepy, like,
maybe
rotoscoped, like, animation?
That's the God Makers.
Yeah. Yes. That's it. Yeah.
But anyways, so long story short, Jesus and Lucifer both step forward with their plans. And Jesus
they're
is like
brothers too.
Yeah,
aren't
they're
they?
brothers. Yeah, the first and second born.
Yeah.
And so Jesus has his plan that he will go down and everybody will have freedom, and there'll be a veil over their eyes, and they'll get their bodies, and then they get to choose, how they're going to live their lives. But he'll go down and he'll give them an opportunity to repent, because he'll give his life.
It's the most convoluted plan.
And then, but Lucifer is like, no, I'm going to make them be good.
Yeah.
And that's where 1/3 of the hosts of heaven went.
Yeah.
I don't think that's exclusively Mormon.
I don't think it is. I think the part about them being brothers is.
Yeah.
But
there are details there.
it's such a better plan. Lucifer had such a better plan. Right? I mean, if you think about it, it's
no war. Everybody gets a body.
Okay, let's say instead of a planet, let's say it was a classroom of kids. And you're like, "Oh, I'm going to go down there and I'm just going to be like, there are rules, but I can't really tell you what they are. But they're over here on the wall if you want to read them.
And then I'm going to grade you on the bell curve."
Yeah, and then anybody who wants to do whatever they want to do can do whatever they want to do, and the punishment's going to come like way later.
Yeah.
And then you have the other teacher that's like, I'm going to tell them all what the rules are, and then if they don't want to do it, they get kicked out of the class. I'm going to make everyone do this. And you're like, let's hire that guy.
Yeah.
Right? Like all this touchy-feely crap over here, that's not going to play. It's going to be awful. There will be anarchy and chaos in the classroom.
Oh my goodness.
And here we are. Damascus.
So, okay. Is there anything more about Damascus that you need to tell us?
Not really. That's about it.
Okay. Well, as we speak, Obama is
making decisions based upon what's going to happen.
And has announced that he's going to seek congressional approval.
God, thank God.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of any of it.
I know. I don't either. I mean, we're in the middle of war fatigue. We can't go any like.
I know, and they say it's just going to be a few day thing, but
no,
how can it be a few day thing?
It never is. It never is. Abby and I were talking about it last night, and I was like, every time that we talk about, like, as a country, like going in, whether it's Afghanistan or Iraq or what, I was like, it's like knowing that your neighbor is like beating their children. And so you get your gun and you go over and you kill the parents. And then you're like, oh shit, what are we going to do with these kids? Oh, we didn't think about that part. It's like you go in and you like dismantle somebody's government and you're like, there you go.
Yeah.
Then you guys know how to cook dinner. See you later. And you walk back out. You know what I mean?
I mean, the reason why I don't know what to do with it is because there are atrocities.
Oh, totally. No, well, that's what I'm saying. It's like a bad thing.
You have to do it,
right? A bad thing is happening.
But at the same time,
well, and if again, to use the neighbors beating their kids thing,
right?
If you don't have the resources to take those kids in or like get them to foster care or something like that, don't just go in and kill the parents. You might want to get the neighborhood together and talk to everybody about like what should we do about the Joneses down the street, right?
Right, but the neighborhood doesn't want to do anything. The UN doesn't want to get involved.
Oh God, so it's just
Britain,
you as Charles
the
Bronson.
Yeah. So what do you do?
I don't know. Going with guns.
Do you let it just keep happening?
No. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I have the answer. I'm just saying, like, again, like, you have to create a plan before you can do it. So,
yeah, I would. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I don't have an answer.
I'm not sold either way.
No, neither
I'm completely open-minded at this point.
I just don't
even know what to do.
Yeah.
But anyways, all right. So I have the story of a Catholic bishop in Honolulu. Who is
beautiful place,
very upset about marriage equality.
Oh,
and potential for marriage equality in this land. That's gay people being allowed to marry. He, of course, is going along with the argument that equal marriage could lead to polygamy.
Oh,
right?
Well, of course.
It totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And so what he's calling on the people of his area to do is he wants them to get out their rosaries and to march around, I think it was the state capitol, and do their rosaries
around the state
capitol. Where is that in this story.
So they're just going to march around and pray.
Right. In order to make sure that it doesn't happen.
For how long?
However long it takes.
Like until that's, I mean, luckily the weather there is usually really nice, so
it's gonna be beautiful.
They could, yeah,
it's gonna be absolutely beautiful.
That's all. Mm-hmm. I thought they were like if they were gonna like throw their rosaries or something.
No.
Like,
he also has claimed that marriage equality in Hawaii would lead to greater suicide among young people.
Mm-hmm. Marriage equality would?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Why would people be killing themselves?
Because they would. I mean, that's what this. I mean, this guy isn't giving reasons. He's just saying shit.
I don't understand, like, why. Like, who would kill themselves? Like, because more people can get married, which teenagers really care about anyway. Teenagers are. I mean, the only teenagers that care about marriage are Mormons, so that they can have sex once they've gotten married. Mm-hmm. Those are the only teenagers that care about marriage one way or the other.
Yeah.
Like, most teenagers are just like, I don't care. Marriage is gross. You get married. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Why would more... Okay.
Well, he doesn't... The article doesn't go into it. But anyways, he is asking everybody to pray, I guess, pray the rosary, right?
Right, yeah.
Around the state capitol building to prevent same-sex marriage.
Again, once Buddhists have lit themselves on fire in the street as a religious protest.
Yeah.
Anything less than that, just, it's not even newsworthy.
Oh, come on.
You're just going to stand around and pray?
It's a protest of sorts, right? I
mean,
I will defend
a really quiet one.
Collecting up a group of people and being quiet should be a kind of protest. And I'll grant him this. It's better than the people who are standing down on the corner of the city-county building here in Salt Lake with signs that say protect dolphins.
Why? Why is it better than that?
Because I'm like, where is this coming from?
Where are the dolphins?
First of all, where are the dolphins?
We're landlocked.
We're a little... Okay, you guys are about 1,000 miles a little too far east. For this,
at least go stand in front of a Red Lobster and do it, right? You're like, at least it's
honk somehow... if you love dolphins.
Yeah,
and it's like, I don't. First of all, the context, I don't even know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Like these people would at least.
I'm just saying, and you guys mentioned
have something better going.
You mentioned
on
this.
That.
You mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but I would say, if nothing else, go get the Shame On people to help you out if you're going to do a protest.
Oh, absolutely.
Go if you don't have an inflatable rat. Okay, you need the inflatable rat because that shit stops traffic. You're like, oh my god, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody's totally getting their ass handed to them. This is amazing.
But then they just have a couple people standing out there with the sign.
Yeah, yawning.
That says, shame on whoever. Whatever company.
Yes.
And labor violations.
Yes.
That's what the other sign usually says.
That's what they need if they want. That's what this guy needs in Honolulu.
Big inflatable rat.
Yeah, you have to have the inflatable rat.
2 inflatable rats. A man and a girl.
Oh my god, that's perfect.
A man and a girl. A man and a lady. A man and a lady rat.
Yeah, that's because marriage is only between
2 rats.
2 rats of opposite sex.
2 consenting opposite sex.
That's true.
Rats.
Or you could have 2 groom rats, and they could deflate them as like the part of the protest. So we're not going to stand for this. It'd still be really quiet, and it would still take a really long time. I think it still gets to the heart of what this guy wants to do.
That's ridiculous.
It's not any dumber than what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Because
well, apparently it's. I mean, he had to get this idea from somewhere, right?
Well, but
like
just
marching around something, chanting.
But they're not chanting; they're praying.
Well, they're praying. They're calling on God to do something,
right? But I mean, I guess to me, I'm just like I
focus
feel like
your
if
attention
you're
here, God.
Well, and if you're an atheist, right? If you're looking at it from that standpoint, it's basically like they may as well have been like, everybody come down and bring a tangerine and stand and think this thought, because it's about how much sense it makes. Bring this rosary that has no power in it at all,
right?
And pray, which is a thing that doesn't do anything. You're not actually talking to anybody.
But they don't know that. They think it does. They They don't.
They don't know that. Oh, you just don't know, do you? Oh, that's so cute. Get down there with your little rosary. You just don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
All right. I love it. This is from Religion Today.
Okay.
Shouting religious slogans, a mob estimated at 1,000 people destroyed a Christian church under construction in northern India on August 25th, according to a report received from church leaders in the region. With the building demolished, the mob began to beat the pastor, his mother, and church members who were able to flee and went into hiding for the night. The extent of their injuries is not known. No deaths were reported. The Christian congregation had begun construction more than 2 years earlier, but quickly met resistance and had been forced to stop the work. After much prayer, the climate seemed to improve and construction resumed. Building had progressed uneventfully to the point that workers were ready to install the roof when the attack came.
Wow. Okay.
A mob 1,000 strong. So, but this is because it's an article in Religion Today. Earlier that afternoon, a small group from the community confronted the pastor and demanded that construction cease, saying that the building was not wanted. Recognizing the growing tension, the pastor stopped the work. Despite the pastor's decision, the group rallied the villagers to a meeting and incited them to attack. The day after the attack, regional leaders first prayed and then met with local police who declined to become involved. How interesting is that?
Okay.
Despite continued threats, the leaders returned to the site to survey the damage and take photos. Church leaders have requested prayer from believers around the world that God will protect the pastor, his family, and the congregation.
So, okay.
Heal the pastor's son, whose medicine cannot be obtained in the current uneasy climate, and open the eyes of the villagers so they might experience the love of Jesus in their lives.
Okay, so let's back up. Okay. So this is... What group is in the village? Like what religious group?
Oh, I don't. It doesn't say that there's any specific religion. Just that these villagers are like, we don't want your church. Get the fuck out of here.
Oh, that we were all so brave.
I mean,
no, obviously not.
I just love that they're like,
like,
let's pray for these people that they really want Jesus in their lives. And it's like, I think they've spoken.
Yeah.
They tore down the church.
Yeah.
Go home.
Okay.
Right?
Well, I mean, okay.
I mean, isn't that what happens, though? Like, you get, like, I mean, back in the day when they would have missionaries that would go off to different countries and they'd be like, he's going into the heart of the Congo to try and tame the savage beast there and give him God. And then, like, oh, brother, Jebediah's head was mailed back to us in a box.
Right.
We're not going back to the Congo.
Right.
Right?
But my question is, with these kind of things, I don't think that it ever deters anybody, right? Like, because ultimately everybody starts to... Like the missionary in the Congo, it's not like people stopped, right?
I guess not.
I mean, in your example, like, I mean, I think of, like, The Mission, right?
Oh, yes.
Right?
Totally,
or anything like that, where, like, true believers don't stop. They just keep marching.
Why don't
they? Keep doing it, and they keep having people pray for them. And it keeps fortifying them somehow.
Why don't they eventually stop? Like, why would you care about trying to indoctrinate people that are tearing your church to the ground?
I don't know.
Because you think it's a test?
Yeah.
I guess it goes back to the hubris. I guess it's just religious hubris.
I mean, you cannot back down.
Right.
You can't. I mean, because you would be rejected. This is your moment. God is paying attention, and you have to keep doing your thing.
So
right?
these guys, these people that were building the church, they're not bummed.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they're bummed. Of course they're bummed.
I don't know if
nobody likes being tried or tribulated, you know? Like, nobody likes that at all.
Oh, whatever. They're sitting somewhere, they're licking their wounds, and they're just talking about Job. They're just talking about Job nonstop.
I'm not saying
right?
that their psyche, that their egos aren't enjoying the hell out of it, but they're not. The people themselves are sitting there and they're suffering, you know,
in hiding
and hiding, yeah, and asking people to pray for them. That's all they've got.
That was my favorite part of the story you actually already brought up, which is like, it's not a group of 1,000 Muslims. It's not a group of like 1,000 Sikhs.
Right.
It's just the people in the town are like, stop it. We don't want your church.
I want to know what group those people represent. I mean, that's what I would want to know in this whole thing.
But I think it's just villagers. That's all it says. And this is from Religion Today, so you know that they would have been like
Muslims.
Oh yeah, they would. When it's italicized, that's the way you're supposed to read it. Muslims. I love. I mean, I don't love that people got hurt. That's awful. Sure.
Right.
But at the same time, I think that you're right that had they built the church and everybody just came to it and were like, yay, they'd be like, okay, well,
now they have their church and there would be inspiration in that.
Yeah,
the community would
like,
flock around
right.
it and they'd feel really good.
But instead, to be able to come back to the States and be like,
this is what we went
we set
now
up
they
that
can be on the
church over
Christian
there.
talk circuit. They can just go church to church.
Oh yeah,
share their story.
Oh yeah, totally.
People buy them a meal.
Oh my God, yes, yeah. No, they get invited up to play along with the band.
Oh yeah,
with everybody with their eyes closed and their hands in the air.
Yeah. Oh my God. Speaking of hands in the air, when Dan and I were on our road trip, we went to a big, beautiful downtown Baptist church. Right? Like we thought, oh, this will be cool, you know.
Yeah.
And it was really nice, and it was, you know, really white because that's let's face it. I mean, there were some, you know, Baptists of color there, but nonetheless, they it was just this big white crowd of Southern Baptists.
Yeah,
and they were really, really boring.
Yeah, sure.
In the way that I didn't think Baptists were. I thought Baptists always kind of had this, like, I thought they, you know, kind of got into it. Well, there was this couple down way in the front because this place was huge, right? Way, way, way down in the front. And I noticed that they were the only ones doing the raised hands
in the whole place.
And they're just like singing along and got their eyes closed, like and doing like praying stuff, and they're just like totally.
Were they Baptists of color?
No.
Okay.
These were the two people who later turns out are leaving to go on a mission to like Central America somewhere. Like these are believers.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
It doesn't matter that the rest of the people aren't praise handing.
The whole
thing, right? Like they are into it.
They're ready to go to their own mosquito coast.
I bet they have some stories of that. Oh, Harrison Ford. Oh my God, that movie. Anyways,
that's a good movie.
It's a good movie.
I totally like that. Like what you're describing, not that, but the hands in the air. I like to refer to it, and my brother sort of has a similar take on this. It's what I like to refer to as the drum kit church.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, the one, if you walk in and you see the drum kit in the corner, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
When they have their like youth pastor groups, this place goes fucking off.
Yeah.
Well, know it.
There was a drum kit in this church, which is why I thought we were going to get something pretty cool.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There was a huge, there's like pipe organ, pipes.
Oh my God. Yeah.
With big organ, big piano. Mm-hmm. There was a small orchestra.
Oh.
There were guitars.
Yeah.
There was everything you would want.
Yeah.
Including a baptism performed 20 feet up above the entire congregation up at the front of the thing so that everybody could see. Like, all of a sudden, like you didn't even see it.
Was it a glass tank?
Uh-huh, yeah.
So you could see the whole person submerged?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And they had the 3-4 camera setup and big screens up at the front.
Oh my God.
So you could actually see a close-up of this little girl who was shaking and all just like...
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
And so the youth pastor's up there and he's like, talks to her for a second and she's like, and her dad looks so proud and he's up there too, but they're like seriously at least 20 feet above the choir.
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
It was pretty amazing.
But then it was boring.
It was just boring. The whole thing was just boring.
Oh, that's such a
and they had
bummer.
like this traveling minister, this traveling preacher who was visiting for a few weeks because their pastor was in the hospital or something.
Whoa, why was he in the
I don't
hospital?
know. He hurt himself. He was recouping. Anyways, we've already told this story to our listeners.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So you're just telling it to me.
Nonetheless, I was telling it to you.
I was spellbound for a minute there. I was like, maybe I've been wrong this whole time. Maybe I should try church. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, no, but it was boring.
Yeah.
It was definitely don't go to Jackson, Mississippi.
That's why they have
to the big Baptist church downtown.
That's why they have all the cameras.
Yeah,
is because they're like, we got to liven this up somehow.
Yeah, there were some cute kids in the kid choir. I mean that kind of stuff is whatever. But yeah, we made the mistake. We should have gone to something in a warehouse. Over in the back next to the track somewhere
where they really have to work for it. They don't have the whole like AV crew.
Yeah, nobody's showing up. A lot of those places do have AV crews, but everybody's just in jeans and
it's a little more.
Maybe a button-down shirt. They're really dressed up for church.
Yeah,
that crowd. That's where the good church would have been. But we made a mistake.
Church reviews.
But like you do it.
Yeah.
You have to go see it.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have to. I mean, that people are like, when they're leaving, they're like, "Oh, that was a good one." That people do. That they have to.
Yeah,
I'm sure they do.
I don't think a lot of people were too impressed with this pastor.
Yeah,
he was a real.
See, that's what it was. Mm-hmm. That's what it was. It was like a substitute teacher.
Yeah,
it's like, it's just not the same.
He wasn't very good. But anyways, that's neither here nor there.
Okay. Let's go to. I think you got one more, right?
I think I do. So this week, and this is a story that a lot of people probably saw, but maybe not. But I have a little spin on it that's kind of interesting.
Okay.
So the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service.
Yes. I've heard of them.
Yes. They have announced, in response to the Supreme Court's decision earlier this year, about, gay marriage, the federal government would be recognizing, right?
Right.
Gay marriage in jurisdictions where it was legal. The IRS has announced that they will be treating same-sex marriages equally for tax purposes. This was kind of a question. What is the IRS going to do with this?
And a lot of people thought that they were going to send their auditors out to stand around the building praying with their calculators.
Yeah, 66666. They're not doing the Lord's work. Let me tell you. So anyways, but they kind of took it a step further than I think a lot of people were expecting. They don't care where the person was married, where the couple was married, and where they're currently living.
Sure,
right? They're just saying, if you're married in a jurisdiction where it's legal and then later move to a jurisdiction where it's not legal, such as if you were a gay couple and you decided to get married out in California,
right,
and then move to Utah, the IRS doesn't care. They will still allow you to file jointly.
That's huge.
Major decision, right?
Yeah. Well, it's essentially saying that the U.S. government acknowledges the marriage no matter where you are,
in a sense,
regardless of state regulations.
Right. Yeah. And but the government's still working out how far-reaching all of that is. But nonetheless, this is the IRS, and when they said it put Utah into a difficult position because we have our Defense of Marriage Act.
Yes, we
as do. A lot of states do, right? And basically defining a marriage as being between a man and a woman only, and they're not going to recognize anything else. But Utah tax code piggybacks federal tax code. Mm-hmm. And so for the purpose of determining who's eligible to file a joint return, Utah would normally just follow the federal government's guidelines. And as of yesterday, or the day before, the Utah State Tax Commission is saying that's what they're going to do.
Really?
Barring action from the legislature.
Oh my God.
For state tax.
Why would they?
Because they'd have to rewrite they'd have to actually, rather than just piggyback, they'd actually have to write up all their own tax code.
You know, you just never would have thought years and years ago that the biggest like advocacy for same-sex marriage would be paperwork. Like it's just, like the secret weapon, to gay marriage is paperwork.
Yeah,
because that's what nobody wants to do.
Yeah, especially not in the state of Utah.
They're like sodomites, infidel. Oh, paperwork. No, that's fine. You guys can get married. We don't give a shit.
Paperwork and writing getting anything through the legislature.
Yeah,
has a cost to it.
Yeah,
there's a price tag on it.
Yeah,
and so I guess Kurt Bramble, probably not a name that will mean a lot to anybody.
Right.
He's a Republican in the legislature. I believe that's his name. He's from Provo, so this guy is a conservative. He's a member of the Senate Revenue and Taxation Committee. He's also a CPA, and he said unplugging the state tax system from the federal one would increase costs and headache for Utah. I don't think there's going to be an appetite in Utah to take that on.
Wow. That is huge.
It's unbelievable in my mind.
Well, I mean,
because this is where it all starts to unravel.
That's what I was just going to say is like if Utah, which is notorious for its religious overtones, for it to be like, we're not going to do it because it's going to be too big of a hassle.
Right. But do you know what always trumps religion, even in the state? Money.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's totally true.
You know?
It's totally true. I mean, it's the same as all the conversations that we had about City Creek, where it's like, no alcohol, no alcohol. Well,
yeah.
Let's find a loophole here. How do we get this to work? And it's totally true. I mean, it's once you interject bureaucracy and money, all bets are off when it comes to like your own sort of religious, like people just they're not willing to do it.
No. Wow. Isn't that crazy though? I mean,
it's pretty fantastic. That's pretty incredible.
Because I had read the other, the whole federal, the IRS thing online,
and I'm sure you were like, "Oh boy, this is where Utah's going to have to."
Yeah, this is gonna, this is a huge development. I thought, and then the next morning, it's rare that this happens. I open up the newspaper, right? Like I read the paper and I already know what's going to be in it. Right, I just read it because I enjoy reading the paper, and there's always those articles that you don't see online.
Yeah,
but this one I had seen.
Yeah,
and there's a little tag on there about Utah State Tax Commission, and I was just like, "News in the newspaper?"
Huh? You got so excited you were trying to click on it to read more about it. Why can't I?
Take me to B4.
Where's
B4? Where's the rest of the story?
Fantastic.
What is B4?
Yeah. Oh my God, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so I've got one more here, and this is there's a lot of times you find stories and they're funny and all this, and this is going to be just grim. So,
okay.
Sorry.
Right.
Sorry.
That's
ahead of time. Sorry.
Boy, there's a lot even your last one was a little grim. You were snickering all the way through it, but it was pretty grim.
I thought the last one was what? Nobody died. They're fine. They're a little bruised up. A mob destroyed a church.
Yeah,
it's funny.
I don't know.
Anyway, so I'm just gonna. There's gonna be some rough stuff in this story, so I'm just apologizing ahead of time.
Okay.
But I feel like some of the details need to be verified in here in order to kind of talk about it.
Oh, and actually, this is part of our planning of this episode. This is actually one of the things that we decided that since this is probably going to go a little bit longer, that we would, in lieu of like the normal break and an additional segment at the end, that we would just kind of linger on this story.
Right.
I just want to prepare our listeners.
Because there's a lot. I feel like there's a lot in here. So some of the listeners might remember a doctor named Kermit Gosnell.
Yeah, the name rings a bell.
And he was a abortionist. He was a abortion doctor, and
I think abortion doctor is probably better than abortionist.
Well,
abortionist sounds like.
In this case, the title makes sense.
Does it?
Because he was arrested. Let's see, it was the FBI and state police raided his offices and found. I guess I'll just kind of read a little bit of this. So this is where he was performing abortions. Mm-hmm. When the team members entered the clinic, they were appalled, describing it to the grand jury as filthy, deplorable, disgusting, very unsanitary, very outdated, horrendous, and by far the worst that these experienced investigators had ever encountered. There was blood on the floor, stench of urine filled the air. A flea-infested cat was wandering through the facility.
Oh, dear God.
And there were cat feces on the stairs. Semi-conscious women scheduled for abortions were moaning in the waiting room or recovery room, where they sat on dirty recliners covered with blood-stained blankets.
Now, I mean, to be fair, is there any way to be fair here?
I don't think so. A flea-infested cat?
I mean, what I'm hearing here are a lot of adjectives to paint a picture.
Right.
But get to his crime.
Okay. Fetal remains were haphazardly stored throughout the clinic in bags, milk jugs, orange juice cartons, and even in cat food containers.
Okay, so
he was...
Why was he keeping them?
I think because he was mentally ill. I think that this guy is totally mentally ill.
Okay.
He... Let's see. According to a grand jury report, patients were given labor-inducing drugs by staff who had no medical training. Once labor began, the patient would be placed on a toilet. It gets much more graphic after that, but essentially, he was doing late-term abortions that were like so late-term that these babies, several of them were born alive.
Oh my God!
And then through his own manual, I mean, he killed them.
Right.
After the fact.
Right. No, I remember the story. Yeah.
So
it's horrifying.
Yeah, horrifying. Yeah. So, but now these are all women, or some of them were younger girls who had gone to him to have abortions. Right. Where it was sort of through the grapevine, they found him because he was willing to do these really, really late term abortions.
How do you? Okay, I was about to take a tangent.
Okay,
I mean.
How
do you get that far into a pregnancy before you decide?
Before
you make this really important decision.
I think because I think a lot of them are going to be young girls who probably either got pregnant and were hiding it from their families, or maybe it's young girls who maybe there's an incest issue, and so this
is their first moment they can
get away to try and it's you wear the big oversized t-shirts kind of.
You're in denial until it's big,
and rather than hiding it in a dumpster or God forbid something like that, this is happening instead. So after his arrest, after his trial, he was given a third-degree murder charge because a woman, and I think this is where the arrest or the raid and all that started from, he gave a woman a lethal dose of anesthesia and painkillers, and she ended up dying.
Oh, my God.
Now, here's the thing. He had 8 murder charges against him. One was for this woman, and the other 7 were first-degree murder, and they were all related to babies whom staff have testified they saw move or a cry after complete birth, and then whose deaths are alleged to have resulted from subsequent lethal action. They arise because of the born alive rule, a principle of common law which stipulates that by default, for legal purposes, personhood arises, and therefore unlawful killing constituting murder becomes possible immediately upon the victim being born alive. Which is really... It's like I remember hearing about it and hearing about this sort of horror story of it, of the conditions and all these things. But like that legality is pretty interesting just from the standpoint of, you know, the pro-life, pro-choice conversation, right? Is so if this is not somebody who's full term and you've given them, I mean, God knows. I mean, again, why this dude is totally mentally ill. Why would you induce labor and then manually? I mean, that's so horrific and barbaric.
Yeah.
But at the same time, so let's say that somebody was like 5 months pregnant and you induce labor and the baby is born alive. I mean, does that baby
that's not possible at 5 months, is it?
I have no idea. I mean, but
I think that's the whole rationale between about like the
when
late term.
personhood exists.
Yeah.
But
in the first 2 trimesters,
right.
the fetus is not viable outside the body.
Right.
Whereas there's a line that, from my understanding, there's a line that gets crossed sometime in the 3rd trimester where it becomes viable outside the body.
And that's where personhood starts.
But there's also something, and I remember I was listening to something on NPR. Okay, listeners, I'm totally just working off a recollection here, so please bear with me.
Yeah.
I seem to remember something on NPR. There being this discussion about determining when is this line? Where is the line between fetus,
a pregnancy and
a person,
right?
Yeah.
Which is total
and a lot of it's been based on this idea of, I think it was pain.
When the fetus can feel pain,
yeah, and so there's been a lot of that's why we hear that come up so much.
Sure,
is because it was actually in some court decisions early on in deciding, you know, the legalization of...
Well, and not to make it trivial, but I think that is the conversation. I mean, they just finally said 100% that fish are incapable of feeling pain.
Okay.
It's like scientifically proven now. It was a couple of weeks ago. And I've had a lot of people I know that are vegetarian that are going, oh, maybe I can eat fish.
Huh.
And not to trivialize this conversation, but it just makes you realize that as people, when we think about morality,
right,
it is the causing pain,
right,
that is the big issue, right?
Right.
Yeah. Because as you know, and you know, you talk about consciousness and you're like, well, how conscious is a newborn 5 minutes ago newborn baby? How aware is it of everything around it? Because they're saying that the memory isn't retaining, and you know, it takes a while for that memory to start retaining things, for even the vision and the hearing and all those things to actually become viable. And so, you know, it really does boil down to pain.
Is the baby conscious? Is
in that
your
first,
question?
and that, you know.
Yeah, well, if pain is the definer, I'm okay with that.
I agree.
I'm kind of okay with that being sort of the moment.
Yeah.
And obviously, like if a baby is being born and it is viable, or even if it, like, I know the lungs are like one of the last things to develop or something, like, because my nephew was born like super premature, and they were able to, when they realized what was going to happen, hold off delivery for a minute or two.
Oh my God.
Not a minute or two, but like a couple weeks.
So that the lungs could be...
So that they could give my sister medication that would get the lungs to develop earlier.
That
or
is
something, it was something crazy like that,
is some
right?
Star Trek shit. But seriously, like to be like, take this and it'll make the baby's lungs grow quick. Like just the fact that we even have that
I'm fairly sure that's what the discussion was. Whoa. Of course, I was fairly young when this happened, so maybe I'm totally making this
maybe
up.
It was an episode.
Maybe
of
it was
Star Trek.
just getting him to wait long enough for the lungs.
Well, yeah,
to
that's why they
developed.
have to do the incubator.
But I'm fairly positive
right?
there was something about if we
about
give
breathing.
you this specific drug, it'll make the lungs stronger. It'll make the lungs more capable. It wasn't like these organs that weren't there will now develop.
Right. Yeah.
You know, the doctor gave me a new pill and I grew a new kidney. No, it's not
in my
that.
head it is a tricorder because I'm stupid. I'm a dumb person. And in my head it's a tricorder.
But anyways, but obviously that discussion is so far beyond the moment of pain.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And did they have any kind of? Did they know when those pain, receptors started? Did they have an idea? Because here's the problem: is that when you start. I mean, obviously, the conversation, the pro-choice, pro-life conversation, is a huge conversation. But when you have these, religiously mired debates where you've got guys who want it to be at the moment of conception, is the silly, and they want to use it as a way to say that the Plan B pill should be outlawed, and that the Plan B pill is abortion, and all these things is so insane to me to say that a zygote is a baby. Like you just go, no, you can't. If you do that, if you do not allow kids to have the Plan B pill, there will be more like 14-year-old pregnant girls out there than, it's like, it's awful. People are going to have sex, and so you have to have options for them. Otherwise, you're going to have so many unwanted kids out there, and unwanted kids. I've said it before. I have made a career out of working with unwanted kids, and they do not turn out okay.
Yeah,
they don't.
Yeah,
they end up growing up in astute poverty. They end up growing up being physically and sexually abused and mentally abused, and they, it's like so. Anyone who doesn't think that there is a direct correlation between no, you don't get the Plan B pill, and then 15 years later you get carjacked by some fucking kid with a gun in your face. If you don't think there's a correlation between those things, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
And so it is a really interesting, and this hasn't even gotten into where the Kermit Gosnell story meets this, but it looks like you figured this out.
Yeah. The majority of scientific literature on the subject finds that brain connections required to feel pain are not formed until at least 24 weeks into the pregnancy. So right around the beginning of the third trimester.
Okay.
And I believe this whole thing, it might have been a Radiolab. I don't listen to Radiolab very often, but
you might be right. I have some recollection. I seem to remember there being
an episode or something Radiolab-ish on the radio that was talking about that was kind of the root, the crux of this, the banning of late-term abortions in the courts.
Okay.
That those decisions to do that were based on the idea of pain.
Right.
That the only thing that they could come to any kind of agreement on was, well, what if we look at pain? When does that first occur?
Right.
Right. And it's somewhere around 24 weeks. Pregnancy lasts 38 weeks?
I'm not sure. I don't remember. I'm bad at math.
So anyways, somewhere around there.
So 24 weeks is how many months? How many months is 24 weeks?
Like 6 months, right?
Okay. Yeah.
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 So, but this is why recently there's been this push in Congress to look at these other studies, these very dubiously conducted studies that fetuses feel pain at 20 weeks. Right? They're trying to push
it further and further
back. Right? Do
you feel like that? And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. This idea of the Damascus conversation of like, well, God's, if you believe in God, then you believe that He has this plan, and that this plan is bigger than any of us,
right?
And that the same thing is true here, which is if you got pregnant, regardless if it was because you were raped or because you decided to have sex,
right?
That if you got pregnant, that's God's plan. God wants that baby to be a living human being on the planet.
Right.
And for you to go and get an abortion means you are stepping in the way of God's plan.
Right.
And that's what it is. It's not it's not about sanctity of life. It's about God's plan, right?
Yeah.
Because if you actually cared about sanctity of life, then if somebody was like a heroin addict and they got pregnant, you'd be like, ugh, that baby's life is going to be awful and you don't even want it. Yeah, you should probably go get an abortion because that's a,
But I think for them, it's any life. It doesn't matter.
Well, until the baby's
human
born.
life.
Until the second that baby comes out of the womb, then it's like, you're on your own. Hope everything works out for you.
Good luck getting healthcare.
Yeah, exactly. or having a place to live or food or diapers or anything because you're on your own. Yeah. I mean, that's, small government. We're not going to have any program set up for you. Sorry.
Right.
And so going along with that, this right here. So thinking that, okay, they want God's plan to go through. And if you got pregnant, then that is God's plan, regardless of whether or not the parent wanted it, right? Mm-hmm. So all of these women who went to this butcher wanted an abortion. None of them wanted to keep their children.
Right.
Pro-life group wants proper burial for babies killed by Kermit Gosnell.
Ooh.
The Philadelphia Medical Examiner has refused a request from a coalition of pro-life groups who want to provide a proper burial for the dead babies found in his clinic. The Medical Examiner, Sam Galino, said his office does not release deceased bodies to unrelated third parties, but he assured the groups that the babies would receive a proper and respectful disposition. What do you think about that?
Well, I know that in a lot of jurisdictions, John and Jane Does are eventually given a proper burial.
Are these persons? Because right here, the grand jury said they were, because he was charged with murder.
Right.
And you were talking about that French movie that you watched, which had a late-term abortion in it, and they made the girl name the fetus.
Right. Yeah.
For medical records, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So here...
But that's France.
Right. Right. Yeah. But here, he has been charged in the murders.
Yeah.
So are they people?
I don't know.
It's weird, right?
I mean, they're yeah. I mean, these were late-term abortions. I mean, the line has to be drawn somewhere, right?
Right.
Like, and this is why it's such a difficult conversation, right?
Yeah.
Because I wholeheartedly believe in a woman's right to choose, right? And to determine, what is going to happen with her body. It's her body. I don't really want any part of the decision.
Right.
But then at a certain point...
Well, you're also a gay man, so you're like, it's never going to include me.
Yeah, it's kind of easy for me. You're right.
You can get as hypothetical as you want about it,
Absolutely.
but you're like, this is never going to come up for me.
But I just feel that we have to be honest with ourselves and say that there is a moment when that fetus turns into a human being, and it's still when it's inside the mother.
And those choices to terminate at that point become a murder?
Now that's where it gets a little tricky.
Right.
Like what is it at that point? Like, I mean, I don't know. I really sincerely do not know where the line really is.
I know.
I'm very comfortable with this idea of pain being a good determiner as to when abortion should not happen.
Right.
Right? The fetus can feel pain at 24 weeks. Okay, well, that's probably a pretty good place for us to cut it off and say, now we respect your right to choose up to this point.
Right.
Right? Like now you have a nearly viable human being in your body that can feel pain. And so we need you to carry this out. And at that point, if you don't want it, we have services and you can.
Right. And not to boil down this awful, grisly circumstance down to a simple object lesson, but I do think it's interesting that Kermit Gosnell in his own way turned a hypothetical it into a real life moment of, okay, this guy, this madman, has induced labor and taken a live baby, delivered a live baby.
That one right there, in my mind, that is murder.
Yeah.
That was a viable human being at that point.
It breathed, it cried,
it cried.
Moved.
It probably needed a lot of medical attention to live.
And then he manually killed it.
But he chose not to give it that opportunity and instead killed it. And
well, like I said,
it's murder.
Yeah, it's a grisly, horrible thing. But I think it's really interesting because you know that's been a hypothetical that's come up in arguments before, and people are like, well, but that's never going to happen, and he did it. And it became this very, very draw the line in the sand object lesson of like, nope, I no longer have great feelings about that. That is, you murdered somebody.
In my mind, that doesn't even enter into
that's
the
straight
abortion.
Up like Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right.
Yeah.
Like to say that was an abortion in my mind doesn't even register.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that clearly. Now, between there, fetus viability and feeling pain, there's a little gap there. Right.
It's just so hard.
There's like a lot of weeks there.
Totally.
There's like a couple months there.
And you and I are both talking about, about.
Actually, there's probably my nephew. He was like 2 months, maybe it was 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Premature. Like he was really premature.
Well, and there's cases here of women 5-6 months pregnant going in and receiving abortions from him. And both you and I have just said, we both just said that we agree to a woman's ability to choose. And at the same time, though, you go, boy, I mean, there were 47 fetuses were found in his clinic when he was arrested. And the thing is I think that for pro-life people, I think for groups like this Christian pro-life organization, I'm sure that they see this as just like, how can you be splitting hairs over this one and this one, this one and this one? And in that respect, again, totally am pro-choice, but I can kind of see their frustration.
I have to say that they need to be
circumstance,
willing. But you have at a certain point, you have to detach yourself from the narrative. Right, of what it was, and even the place of what it was, and you have to say
it's so hard to because it's so barbaric.
Yeah, but you have to. You have to say, okay, we have to understand and be able to classify what happened here,
right.
And we need some definitions to work on, and they have them, and they now it is again, where is that line? That's a really it's for people who are way more educated and way smarter than me.
I know. Well, and same here. And it's the same. I hate. Well, I don't hate it. I find it really fascinating because I do the same thing, and I'm like, that line feels like you give me one example and my line slides up here, and you give me another example and the line slides way back here, depending on my emotions. And it's the same way that I feel about really, really young transgender kids. Do you know what I mean? When you're talking about like a kid being 4 or 5 and the parents being like, we moved to a new town and gave her a new name. And I'm like, she's 5.
Yeah.
Like she still believes in Santa. Like,
yeah, but
you know what I mean?
None
like
of those families came to that decision easily. It's not like the child said, I think I'm a girl. And it was like, all of a sudden, boom. Let's change everything.
I know, but I guess I'm saying that the line slides for me in that conversation because when the kid is 10, it like warms my heart and makes me want to cry. And I'm like, that kid is so lucky to be in such a supportive family. Right. And when that kid's 4, I'm like, you might want to give it a couple of years. That might seem that might be a little drastic. You know what I mean? And I hate that. Yeah. And I realize that when I say it, yeah, exactly. He wants to be an astronaut and a farmer. He wants to farm on the moon. Space. Like, just wait a little bit.
I'm a space farmer.
Yeah, and then I hate it because I say that, and then I feel like an asshole because I feel like I'm being non-supportive of an issue I really believe in.
Right.
But the line slides, and when it does, it makes you feel really odd.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Sorry that my dog's barking because there's a dog barking down the street. I apologize.
No.
Sorry about that. Sorry. I guess I don't know. I guess it's the reason why I wanted to have the conversation is because it did feel like this sort of odd moment where, when you just look at when you just look at pro-life group wants proper burial for aborted babies, you go like, you know.
Right.
But then when you start getting into it, and I think that's where, you know, you say we have to separate ourselves from the details, and to me, I'm like, well, it's the details that make that line slide around, and that's when it's interesting, at least for me as someone who definitely sits more in the atheist camp than anywhere else. But I do see myself at times like finding these moments of gray and being like, what do I believe in? Oh shit, where am I? You know, like, and then you find your footing again and everything's there. But I think it's, you know, sometimes it takes those moments. Honestly, it wasn't until I got into a physical altercation that I realized that I was a pacifist. I had always said it, and it was a very easy thing to say. But actually getting hit by somebody and being like, I'm not going to hit that person back. Wow. That I was like, I walked away from it, and it was jarring, and it took a couple of years for me to be like, oh, okay, I really am. And I think it's those unstable ground moments that make you go, what am I?
Right.
You know, and you get tested a little bit.
Right.
And it's a good thing, and it's very healthy. And, you know, for your show, that's this atheist show, I think a lot of times we jump into our camp and we go, yay! And sometimes we have to stop and be like, hold on. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
just stop for a minute and look around and really, you know, get your barometer out and see how you feel about something. And it's a good thing to do.
Right.
So this was one of those moments that I was like, ooh, boy, it really is. It's an object lesson. It's right there in your face. And you have to kind of test yourself to see how you actually feel, you know? Mm-hmm. And some of those things you can totally like draw a line across and be like, yes. And then other things you're like, I don't know. You know? I mean, don't you think that's healthy?
No, I think it's totally healthy. And I think it's what, you know, like I have this reaction often when I see stories like this and it's probably very similar to what you were just saying, but like where I don't even want to face it. Right, because I'm like, I already know that I believe in a woman's right to choose. I know that I know that I see a lot of gray areas in this discussion, and I don't need to hear blah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I also think that there's a part that is I'm comfortable with how I have it defined right now, and I don't want to get into it and be like, oh, where is the line? You know?
Yeah.
And so it's really healthy to actually confront the story.
Yeah.
And say, you know what? You know, okay, well, between here and here, I seriously don't know, but I know about these other sides.
Totally. Yeah. And I feel the same way. You know, I don't like getting into a lot of political discussions, but then when I do, and it's funny because most of the time when I do, it's usually with you.
Okay.
I feel like I don't know why, but I think that it's you know, like you and I got into a really big conversation about smoking bans. This was a year or two ago.
Yeah.
And you know, and I realized that there's places where I feel like big government is really important, and there's places where I feel like, well, let people ruin their own lives if you're going to let them ruin their own lives, you know, like.
Right.
And you were like, I totally disagree with that, and we got into it and started talking about it, and then I really understood like sort of where I stood on a lot of different issues about the versions of big government and stewardship that I love, and then the parts of it that make me feel a little bit hinky. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it was interesting because not until you and I had started talking about it did I realize that I felt that way.
Oh, wow.
You know, I just think that it was like I took for granted, like, you know, I put all of this in a pile over here and I put these things in a pile over there, but I didn't realize that they were the same thing, and I was being kind of hypocritical by saying like they shouldn't blah blah blah, you know what I mean? And it's like, no, it's all the, you know, the fact that I get pissed about like the DABC, you know,
the Department of Alcohol Beverage Control here in
Utah, and get pissed with the way that they get their fingers into, you know, like when I can and can't have a drink depending on where I'm at, and then realizing that like, oh, that's the way people feel about tax money going to like art nonprofits. You know what I mean? It really is. It's the same thing. Like me being like, bleh, 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 they give me my beer and other people are like, yeah, take my money and turn my kid into homosexual or whatever, you know? Like, that's the way other people feel about it. It's like, you can't tell me what to do with this.
Right.
And I didn't realize that I was being kind of hypocritical about bitching about one thing and then being like, how come people can't just figure it out? And you know what I mean? Like, it's very interesting that it is like, once you start talking about it, you suddenly realize, like, oh, my philosophies are.
So did you decide to be okay with the DABC?
No, I still hate them. I just realize now. I realize now that I hate them, but I know what it means when I'm bitching about it.
Oh, okay. Cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It didn't. I don't need to change my opinion. I just need to know what my opinion looks like to other people.
Right.
Because on the surface, it might seem kind of hypocritical, or
I don't think that's hypocritical because I don't see the strong analogy between the two either.
Well, it's someone else telling you what you can and can't do.
Yeah, but one is like taxes paying into a system that benefits us all, and the other one is this substance which some people view as objectionable and dangerous, and so they want to control it.
Well, but taxpayer money going into how we get that controlled.
Well, it kind of pays for itself. It doesn't fully pay for itself, from my understanding, but
you see what I'm saying. But I mean, cigarettes are the same way.
Yeah.
You know, let's make them $9 so that no one can buy them.
Yeah, but it's undeniable. I mean, not to get into this discussion again, but it's undeniable.
We've already done this.
It's undeniable, the health risk. And so it's for the public's good. Anyways.
We were going to wrap up quick,
I'm
too.
I'm definitely revealing a lot of...
Just like
if people didn't know my politics before...
It's okay. But politics and
no problem with
but politics and religion live right next to each other in terms of
especially in this state.
I think that anywhere. I think that morality, morality dictates how we build up the rules that society must abide by.
Absolutely.
And the abortion conversation is no different. And I think that it's like I said, I think that when people say God's plan means X, Y, and Z, so we have to, and if we're the ones in control, we have to create rules so that X, Y, and Z can happen the way it's supposed to.
Right.
Right. And so as someone who definitely believes, and both of us do, that morality is in no way mutually exclusive to religion, and actually, if you look throughout history, quite the opposite is true.
Right.
But people don't believe that.
Right.
Religious people don't. They go, well, if you don't believe that there's someone minding the store so you can't steal the candy, everyone will steal the candy,
Right, but it comes from an understanding of morality that's based more on what you're wearing and what you do with your,
penis. Exactly.
I was going to go a slightly different direction, but yeah, I mean, let's
really get down to brass tacks.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
I mean,
yeah.
When you hear religious folk talk about morals, that's what they're talking about. They're not talking about
what will stop you from
ethical relationships and ethical treatment of others.
No, they're literally talking about what will stop you from breaking down your neighbor's door and having sex with his wife.
Yeah.
And then killing them all.
Well, sir, you better keep that religion because I'm kind of afraid of you now.
Yeah, exactly. If that's literally the only thing that's stopping you
from doing that,
that's what I always... I know.
Keep it.
That's what I always say, man. I'm like, if you've come up with a hypothetical that involves like cannibalism, and you're proselytizing that to everybody else, it's like, wow, yeah, I never even thought about that.
Yeah,
you're really freaking me out, dude.
But all the people in the pews are like, he's right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally.
He's totally right. That is the next thing.
The only thing that keeps us all from participating in those deliciously decadent homosexual urges is Jesus. And it's like, good, then you better stick with that because you are going to go off the deep end, dude.
Well, yeah. And we know what those guys look like.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I've seen them at the gay club.
Oh,
I haven't been in a while to a gay club, but...
Well, it's the Ted Haggard gay face.
Oh,
right?
Yeah,
it's full Ted Haggard gay face, where it's just
into prostitution, and it runs into guys who are in their 40s doing stuff they shouldn't be doing.
Totally, it's lots of rest stops.
Yeah, and wearing clothes that are just not right.
Lots of peacock designs on the back pockets.
I'm more worried about
jeans.
the fashion choices they end up making. than where they're having sex. As long as they're being safe.
Yeah, I love that you. My biggest concern is fashion statements. It's just awful.
They make the worst choices.
Oh, they really do.
Yeah,
you should not be wearing that shirt.
Well, if you'd like to chime in on anything you've heard today.
We managed to end light.
Yeah,
I love it.
How did that happen?
I don't know, man. We were on like the sixth ring of hell.
Thanks, Adam.
So, well,
this might have been your last time.
Oh. Wah, wah, wah. But the room is still pretty.
The room is lovely.
Yeah,
I'll have to come back for the room next time.
Definitely.
Next time Dan's out of town.
Yeah.
All right. Facebook.com/TGIAtheist. You can go there and like us and join the conversation. Also, if you want to get in touch with us directly and maybe we'll read your email on the show. We didn't do any of that this week, just because that's a good thing that Dan and I just do it.
Most of it always pertains to
yeah,
it,
exactly. So
does anybody ever write in about anything I've ever said?
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. But anyways, I think somebody has.
Did I manage to guilt people into it this time with that noise?
Maybe. But anyways, the email address is podcast@thankgodimatheist.com, and our voicemail, you can do the exact same thing, but we'll play your voice on the show. 424-666-8442. As always, we like to thank the Red Rock Hot Club for letting us use their music for the opening and closing of the show. And thank you, Adam, for filling in. And any plugs of anything you're working on right now?
I know that we've gotten a couple of listeners from me doing this show on my podcast.
Are you serious?
Yeah, very cool. So
that's awesome.
For any of you who are interested in that, it is a Damn Movie Podcast. You can find us at adampodcast.com or on iTunes. So
awesome.
We're getting ready to do our 200th episode. So
no way.
Big celebration.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you're interested in any of that, check out our movie review podcast there.
All right. Well, cool. Thank you. And thank you, listeners. And Dan will be back next time.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.